Meeting to order. Today is October 15th, and we begin with the roll call.
Karen Kahn.
Here.
Bruce Miller.
Here.
John Clark.
Here.
William Gilbert.
Here.
Patricia Griffin.
Here.
Dolores Johnson.
Here.
And Kirk Martin.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Madam Chair.
That's fine.
Elevate you.
We come next to the public comment section, when any member of the public may address the commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission and that is not scheduled before them that same day. The total time for public comment is 15 minutes. Do we have any speakers?
I don't have any speakers lists.
Okay, thank you. Notices that on Friday, October 10th, 2008 at 3 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at Airport Administration, and that the Noise Abatement Committee is scheduled to meet on Wednesday, January 7, 2009 in the Airport Administration Building, 601 Firestone Road, Santa Barbara. The consent calendar. Are there any changes? Any issues of discussion?
Move for approval.
Do I hear?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar is accepted. Moving on to administrative reports.
Well, it's that time of year where Commission looks at our recommendations for airline rates and charges, and Assistant Director Johns will be making the presentation.
Thank you. Earlier this summer, Karen made a presentation to Airport Commission on the status of the airline industry, and it continues, and I just wanted to add a few comments that the airlines are still in difficulty, and now it's compounded by the U.S. economy and fuel prices. You'll recall that the airline business model was based on less than $65 a barrel for oil, and it had reached upwards of $135 to $150 a barrel. That cost for the airlines increased from 1998 to 2008 from 10% of their budget to 40% of their budget. And additionally, the airlines are trying to cut costs wherever they can. Now they're charging for luggage. They're charging for pillows and blankets and preferred seating, whether you want aisle or window. So they're taking steps to cut their costs while trying to survive in this turbulent time. This also was pointed out. It's not just Santa Barbara. It's not just small airports. It's all airports are being affected by it. Actually, the Airline Operating Guide, is that right? OAG, Official Airline Guide, stated October 13th that 219 airports globally had been closed, had no service, no commercial service. 33 of those airports are in the United States, so all commercial service has been withdrawn. So it is affecting everyone around the country. In the Tri-County areas, you'll recall that San Luis lost American Eagle and their maintenance base was pulled back. Delta withdrew their service. They did succeed in getting U.S. Air to add another flight, I believe, either to Las Vegas or to Phoenix, but 33% of their service was lost. Santa Maria and Oxnard lost about 20%, even though it was small. They went from 5 to 4 flights per day. In Santa Barbara, we too have been impacted by the airline crisis. We have American Eagle has reduced flights from 7 to 6. On the upside, they tell us they will replace the Saabs with RJs. That hasn't happened yet, but they have told us that. U.S. Airways, you'll recall, has cut back 1 flight to Las Vegas from 2 to 1, 1 flight to Phoenix, 5 to 4. United is making changes for the winter schedule with reductions, at least 2 flights to Los Angeles. Delta, no change. We still have 2 flights. Allegiant has cut 1 of their 3 weekly flights to 2 flights to Las Vegas. ExpressJet stopped service nationwide. Horizon continues with service to Seattle directly, and then as you know, on November 9th, they'll pick up the Sacramento service, and 2 of those 3 flights will continue on to Portland. So overall, Santa Barbara, between June of this summer and winter, we will lose 20% of our flights and 21% of our seats. However, we still have 6 airlines in good shape and 10 nonstop destinations. So overall, we're taking a big hit, really, but we're still doing better than other Tri-County airports. The airlines operate with 2 types of agreements. You'll recall one is a residual, where the airlines assume the risk for capital improvements generally at an airport. The other form is a compensatory, and that's where generally it's a cost accounting approach, and the airport takes the risk on generating the revenue. Historically, we have always had annual operating permits with the airlines, and it's sort of a modified compensatory residual. It's just a conglomerate agreement. We identify direct costs that are charged directly to the airlines. We do not include any overhead or administrative costs, and we do back out the TSA reimbursement that we receive for patrol for their services at the terminal. And the airlines have always enjoyed the permit. In 2008, we negotiated an agreement, and that agreement had the per square foot rate for the terminal at $66.81. In addition to that, the airlines pay a per day cost for parking for employees. And the landing fee rate that we negotiated last year was $1.98 per 1,000 pounds of gross landed weight. And that rate is charged to all operations on the field for cargo as well as commercial airline service. Today I met with the airlines, both Steve DeWiggins from SkyWest, they represent United and Delta. U.S. Air was also represented, as was Horizon. All of the airline representatives recognize that the airport is doing its best to keep costs low and to work with them on minimizing their cost. And we also went over the status of the Airline Terminal Improvement Project, we touched on proposed rate methodology for the new terminal, and discussed schedules both for the terminal development as well as for what flights they were going to be having. You'll recall, too, that airlines measure their costs by cost per in-plane passenger. In Santa Barbara's, our rate for the end of our fiscal year, June 30th, was $5.53. Our costs are pretty static, so that rate will go up or down depending on the number of in-plane passengers. And we have been seeing an increase this year, still have an increase, I think, this year. Nationally, the average is around $7, and our benchmark for the coming year is $5.42. Final recommendations, we're recommending that we maintain the same rates in 2009 as we have in 2008, and that they be effective October 1 through September 30th, 2009, and that would be $66.81 per square foot for the terminal and a $1.98 landing fee. Be happy to answer your questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
You said that your benchmark for the coming year was 543, and you're currently at 553, but you're keeping the rates the same, so you're anticipating passenger growth is really the only change there?
Well, the benchmark is actually set. Santa Barbara benchmarks with 6 other airports of our size, and so that benchmarking rate is actually set by that survey. And we participate, but it's the average of those 6, so that's where it's set. And yes, ours has gone up and gone down monthly, depending on the number of in-plane passengers, because the rates are pretty static. I mean, other than landing fees, the building rate is static. So I was hoping that we would be under that at the end of the year, but that didn't happen.
Any other questions? comments?
You were talking about American Eagle decreasing one flight but replacing the planes that they're using. Are they going to be slightly larger?
There'll be RJs, so they would be
So
larger,
they'll have
44
more
seats, I
capacity.
believe. Is that right?
Yeah,
And a Saab is 30,
34, 32.
34. So we should gain some seats. And they still indicated today that that was taking place in 2009, right?
That's great.
As is SkyWest is changing out their fleet. Some of the Brazilias, I believe they said today, would be going to RJs.
So those are quieter and larger?
Larger.
Larger.
The differences of turboprop versus a jet.
The regional jets are still very quiet. They're a new Stage 3 aircraft, so they're one of the quietest jet aircraft.
Kind of a different kind of noise, but they're
Yeah.
quiet.
Do I hear a motion that we recommend to the city council, the final recommendations of staff?
I'll recommend approval.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And that brings us to the self-service fueling status report.
And again, Assistant Director Johns, this is her night.
Karen was gone for 2 weeks with knee surgery, so
So,
I just got busy. The self-service fueling, we've had reports to Airport Commission sometime back. We were have been approached by the general aviation community for low-cost fuel. That issue comes up when we conduct surveys frequently. And over the years, we've investigated the possibility of putting in the fuel tank and operating it ourselves. And when we've done that analysis, it always comes back to where it loses money. It's not a profitable venture for the airport. However, as prices of gasoline have gone up, and avgas fuel in particular continues to rise, the community once again asked for it, and the Santa Barbara Advocates Group hosted 2 meetings with 2 different fuel providers that have tanks that could be used. And so in response to that, we decided that, yes, we would investigate that type of operation one more time. Since the FBOs are the ones who currently provide fuel on the field, we thought it would be fair to go to them first and ask if they would be interested in providing self-service fueling or putting in a self-service fueling facility. We talked with both Signature Aviation and Atlantic, along with their corporate people, and in both cases, the 2 FBOs came back and said that they were really not interested in pursuing self-service fuel. So we met with the GA Subcommittee of Airport Commission and discussed the request and decided that we would do a request for proposals because there were obviously 2 companies that were interested, had made proposals, and put it out to see what we'd receive. We circulated it widely. We put it on AAAE's news report. We put it in the newspaper. We had it on flysba.com. We put it in the local newspaper. We sent it to known interest groups, and we required that they attend a pre-proposal meeting because Santa Barbara's unique with the ocean and the Coastal Commission needing permits. So we really felt it was important if they were going to make a proposal that they make the mandatory pre-bid. We held that, and we did have some interest there. There were, I believe, 6 or 7 companies represented. We went through the RFP in detail. We talked about the minimum standard requirements that Airport Commission and City Council have adopted. We talked about potential sites for where a fuel facility could be installed. We talked about the city's permitting process. We went through extreme detail, talking about the Planning Commission because of a development permit, going downtown, making sure that they had all the information available that they could get on development. Then we went on a site tour of the field, looking at the 3 potential sites that we had initially identified, and Two of those sites were over close to Signature and Ampersand. One site was over at the old, at the very west end of the ramp, down by Cook, where the Forest Service used to be. After that meeting, we received questions from the proposers. We responded to those questions through a written addendum so that everyone would have the same information. And then we waited for the proposals to come back, and we received a proposal. That proposal was from MAG Aviation Fuel out of Hesperia. So we called our selection committee together, and the committee members included Airport Commission, GA subcommittee members, the airport director from Lompoc, because he has self-service fuel and was very helpful, and also Roger Friedman serves on that selection committee, and he's with the Santa Barbara Advocates and a local pilot on the field. So and Tracy was, and I also served on that committee. So we reviewed the initial proposal, found that there were some holes that needed filling. So we identified those, and we prepared a letter to go back to MAG Aviation, asking them to give us some additional information and detail on their proposal. We asked them specifically to clarify how large an area they needed, what kind of infrastructure improvements they were going to make. We made it clear that the airport wasn't investing in this proposal. We provide the land and utilities would be at the site, but we didn't intend to invest airport dollars in the development side. So we wanted to make sure that they understood that as well. We had some concerns about local contact, who was really going to check it on a daily basis, recognizing that the actual operation of the fuel facility could probably be done through computers, through internet, but on the other hand, if something happened and they're in Hesperia, who's going to be here locally to take care of it? And we also thought that the proposal underestimated the real cost of doing business in Santa Barbara. So we sent that back, those questions back, and asked for additional information. We did get another proposal back, or another addendum to their proposal, and once again, it just didn't fit the need. And we talked about it, tried to find a way to make that proposal be complete. At the end of that second meeting, it was the consensus of the committee that we elect not to award a contract. And so I wrote a letter back to MAG Aviation explaining what the committee's decision had been, and gave them as much information as possible on why we had not selected their proposal. They called. They were concerned that they were the only ones doing the proposal, and couldn't we come in and talk about it? So we said, certainly, you can do that. So we had a meeting on August 29th with the two gentlemen with MAG Aviation, with the airport director, and Tracy and I met with them. They also brought in a representative from the fueling company to be sure that he understood any questions we might have or could provide clarification. So at that meeting, we were very explicit, as detailed as we could be, and we said, please, they asked if they could have more time to get back to us. And the airport director agreed that we'd do another 30-day extension and accept another addendum. And that addendum has been received, and I've scheduled a meeting for October 23rd with the selection committee to review the additional information and then look at the whole picture. I don't want it all to be pieces, because it's been that way, but look at the original proposal, the two addendums, and see if indeed we now have sufficient information to where perhaps a positive recommendation could be made. And as I said, that's on October 23rd here in our office, so we'll probably be getting back to, I would assume we'd have a decision that day and could get back to the GA community with whatever that recommendation might be.
To Airport Commission.
To Airport Commission in November, right.
I have a question. Do we have the opportunity to review the proposal before you award it on the 23rd? Can we take a look at it?
Oh, certainly. It's
Okay.
public.
Okay.
Anybody, I can make copies for you if you'd like.
I'd like to see it, sure.
I'll do the RFP and the proposal, so you'll
Okay.
see. Okay?
Any other questions?
Karen, reading this letter from Mr. Friedman that we received, it's unfortunate that anytime you have to go through the loops and hoops that are presented with being part of a city or any government organization, it takes time, but I do want to express that we recognize the need. I wish it could be sooner, but you just got to go through the motions and everything else. We're handicapped in a lot of respect. But I'm sure, I know that there has been pressing comments and everything else to staff to hurry and do it as best they can. But we are handicapped like anybody that's in the working with the government, having to go through all these agencies. There's no way around it, unfortunately. Is there, Mr. House? But I thank you for the report, and I thank you for the letter, and I hope I hope it comes to pass soon. What is the cost of gas here versus? I know even for a long time we've been flying other areas. I haven't paid any attention, but it's not just it's the cost of gas versus not just the. I mean, I shouldn't say put it that way. Is the reduction in gas by having a self-service that great? That's the one thing I've never been ever to really get a feel for. Or how long does it take before we recoup?
Well, I think I think there is a differential in the cost of self-service fuel versus fuel pumped by an FBO. The self-service fuel wouldn't have the cost associated that an FBO has with the fuel trucks. That's a huge cost. And some of the people, the insurance would probably be about the same. So the overhead costs for an FBO are always added on top of that to recoup it back. And I believe, though, just maybe it was Roger's email to me that I noticed that fuel prices in Santa Barbara, and Matt's here from Signature, I think it's $6.88. Is that about right? $6.88 a gallon for low lead, which is down.
There is still the cost of filling the tank or even the, however we're doing it.
You have to get the raw fuel.
I'm sure there will be a savings. I hope it's enough to make it profitable. That we're still below Lompoc.
Boy.
Possibly not.
Did the meetings with the proposed provider have any notion as to what they felt they could offer the fuel for? Because I'm concerned that everybody is thinking how wonderful this will be, and then when they discover it's 50 cents a gallon less, or not the $3 a gallon less they were hoping for, they're going to be badly disappointed that this appears to be, should we say, the same ripoff they're feeling otherwise.
Right. We did stress to them to really look at their pro forma in a couple of ways, not to assume that every GA pilot on the field is going to go do self-service fuel, first of all. And secondly, just the cost, as I said earlier, of doing business in Santa Barbara. Fuel costs in Santa Barbara are higher than they are in Ventura or Santa Maria at Santa Barbara, and there is a premium there. So hopefully that will be the case, that it would be, certainly it has to be somewhat lower.
Was there any mention made if their costs were going to be based on how much they pumped, or were they just looking to provide it at the best price they could?
Well, I think in their proposal, we had asked them to, not exactly a formula, but give us an idea how they would price the fuel based on their investment, based on the how long they have to amortize that cost, as well as I lost my train of thought.
Raw fuel
Sorry,
costs.
raw fuel cost, and so forth. I mean, and how much they pump. I mean, and like Hazel said, they can't assume that they're going to have every based GA customer on the field do self-service fueling, because not all will. And then obviously there'll be some transient aircraft that come in. So there's a lot of factors that go into, how they'll price the fuel. And I think it's, it's their intention from their proposal to make it, significantly less than what is charged at the FBOs out of a truck. So we'll just have to see based on their experience.
Their proposal indicated they were hoping to have $1.20 per gallon profit.
But that didn't have anything to do with what they felt the differential might be between them and a truck-based fueling operation.
They didn't respond to that.
I wanted to say that in all fairness to them, it's real hard to come up with a price because it changes every week, as Matt can, you just can't. I mean, they can tell you they're going to do their due diligence to keep the price lower, but we have to be very careful, as you know, talking about pricing of fuel.
Right.
Any other questions?
So we'll march on.
Thank you. That brings us to the fiscal year 2008 year-end review.
This will be brief. You have a detailed report. Hopefully it's detailed in some respects, along with the spreadsheet and a report on airport reserves, our mandatory reserves from City Council, and then the amount that we have generated over the mandatory reserves. Total revenues for this past fiscal year for the airport were $13,807,000. So we were about 5% above our budget target, 4% over 2007. Commercial industrial continues to do very well. We had a 4.8% increase over the prior year. Non-commercial aviation is slightly below target. Once again, that goes back to the Forest Service leaving a change in the Atlantic lease that we did where we put them on square footage cost. Airline terminal revenues reflect passenger traffic, and while our numbers were up for most of the past 12 months or during the fiscal year, we made changes with the gift shop. As you know, that brought that revenue source down. Parking is another one that we were off. We had made an adjustment to increase rates, and I really thought that we would meet the budget. We didn't. We were down 7.1%, and I think that tracks with the number of tickets issued and the tickets collected. I mean, so there's nothing missing there. We were just off. I just didn't budget correctly, I guess. Fuel costs, too, are high. Parkers are using alternative transportation, which is something we want to see. I just hate to see our budget impacted by it, but that happens. The rent-a-cars were high. As you know, we did that wonderful request for proposals, and they outbid themselves. We're benefiting from that. Additionally, with Avis being off the field, they're doing really well as well, and we're getting 8% of their gross receipts, so that's beneficial. Commercial aviation revenue was up 10.8% above target, even though the rate's $66.81 for the terminal, but it really is that $3.45 per day per employee for parking that really pushed that up. Our landing fees were 12.4% over budget, and hopefully that number, we reduced what we anticipate getting from airlines in the new year budget in 2009. That's come down some just because of the turmoil. Interest income was really out of sight. At the end of the year, they did an adjustment, and our interest income went up to $711,000. I was just flabbergasted. I knew we'd been saving money for the terminal, and we have been, but they had some really good investments through the city's general financial system, and we benefited from that. One thing that I'd like to call your attention to is under other revenues. Several years ago, we submitted a passenger facility charge application to FAA, and one of the projects that was in that application was a reimbursement to the airport for the cost that we had undertaken to do the environmental documents and the aviation facilities plan, our master plan. For over the years, we just accumulated what it cost. put that in. It was an allowable expense under PFCs. So during the years when we've collected, if we've had other planning studies going on, other types of, whether it was for the rent-a-cars or if it was more on the airline terminal that we needed, we used those funds. There was only a little small remaining portion of that PFC remaining $89,000. And so I elected this year to close the PFC application out since everything else was completed, and then transfer that amount of money to the airport operating fund where we had spent the money initially for the master plan. So that's why other revenue is up substantially. Expenditures, salary and benefits are below target. We still have vacancies. We are working extremely hard on coming up with new ideas, new proposals, new ways to approach that. Our supplies and services were also way over budget. We had looked at all of our mitigation costs for the long haul, for the airfield safety area, the creeks that we'd worked on, and we just over budgeted. We didn't need that much money in order to do our mitigation. So that came back to us. ARF was over somewhat due to some end-of-year true-up cost for salaries and benefits and that sort of thing. Equipment, we carried forward some costs for computers and also a new vehicle for patrol. So in summary, our total department operating expenses were $11,693,000, or 9.9% below budget. As I mentioned earlier, the policy reserves are fully funded for 2009 going forward, and then we had $1,999,626 over above policy reserves. So it was a good year for us.
Hazel, how does the hydro mulching operation and the expense of that fit into the budget?
I don't know if we paid that.
No, we haven't.
We're obligated, or we participated in the cost. I believe our share was $70,000, and we will pay that either out of reserves above policy, or we'll look in our budget and see if there's a way to do it maybe out of facilities or someplace. But what we did get when we worked with the hydro mulching company, each landing, we cut the landing fee in half, so we'll get $1 per 1,000 pounds per landing, and 5 cents per gallon fuel flowage fee, and they worked with Signature on the fuel, so that should be coming in as well.
And how far through the process are they at this point?
I understand they're done
Oh,
early.
great.
I'd just like to comment that was handled so well. I think everybody was so aware of what was happening and why, and it didn't turn into what could have been a real disaster of complaints.
The city of Toledo is also quite a great assistance. They held several community meetings, and they spoke about it at each meeting, so that was a big help. The helicopter operations that are based just on the other side of the mountain will continue through, they think, Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and they should be done.
Great.
Any other comments on the report?
Any other comments? Okay. And with that, we move on to the director's report.
Okay, I have a few items to brief you on. The first is just a reminder that the city is now in the midst of advisory group recruitment, and Airport Commission is along with all the other advisory groups, and we have 2 positions or terms that are up. One term is Commissioner has fulfilled the 2 terms that is allowed, and then one commissioner just has completed 1 term. So we have several people that have made appointments and have come in and had a briefing and could ask questions. Today I was, the city administrator let me know there's another person that's also interested. So I think we'll have if we don't have a huge pool, we'll have a small pool of really very good people for council to choose from.
Karen, what's the deadline for applications?
November 3rd is the deadline for applications at 5 p.m. And if people are interested, they can go on the city's website, santabarbaraca.gov, to the boards and commission section, and there's an application that you can fill out there, I believe online, and then send it in. The interviews will be held Tuesday, November 11th, Tuesday, November 18th, and Tuesday, November 25th. And people should look on the website for the times as those get scheduled into the council agenda. Normally, they try and do it toward the end of the meeting, so.
And then the decision is made or announced in early December?
I think they will make it soon. Yeah, it will be early December, since November 25th is the last interview. And then the terms end at the end of December, and then in January, the new members come on board.
Okay.
I noticed there's a stack of glossy brochures for boards and commissions at the front desk. You should grab some for your friends.
Yes, we encourage everybody to apply. Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. Grant House, your liaison to the City Council. I'll take this opportunity to, first of all, appreciate Karen for bringing this up, because it's very, very important. But it's not just your commission. It also, there's boards and commission opportunities for people to participate in their local governance, and many opportunities to participate, everything from Parks and Recreation Commission to housing issues. I mean, just the range is just amazing. So I want to really put a plug in for members of our community who are watching to seriously consider participating. It's a wonderful way to get your a sense of real, like you make a difference, like you're really participating and making a difference and contributing to your community. I will reiterate or really emphasize that it's important that you have your application in on time. It's not hard to fill out. It's very easy. But also that you must attend one of the two opportunities to be interviewed. And the interview is a simple presentation to the City Council at one of our meetings. But if you don't come to that, then you can't be a member. So we want to really make sure that people who are interested step up and follow through. But just like we are so appreciative of all of your service here, without which, we really wouldn't have the community's participation in the way the airport is run and all the valuable input that you provide. That's true of so many of the parts that make our city run. We truly depend on our volunteers and those who step forward to participate like you do. So I thank you very much for doing that, and really encourage people once again to step up and participate.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we'd all second that
Thank
it's a
you.
really rewarding and interesting experience. It really is.
Absolutely.
And you're highly paid.
Yes.
I still get $10?
No. They lost that a long time ago.
Oh.
Okay. On passenger count, we were down 4.1% this September compared to September of 2007. And last month I told you to expect that with Horizon stopping service. But that should pick up some in November when, not Horizon, ExpressJet, excuse me, stop service. In November it should pick up with Horizon picking up the Sacramento service. So year to date we're up 3.5%. I was looking at some figures from John Wayne Airport sent on their news releases. I forget the exact numbers, but they're down quite a bit. I think it was double digits.
Yes.
They were down. So I feel that we're very fortunate to be where we are. Just a reminder that on November 9th, Horizon starts their Sacramento service. We're having an inauguration of the service on Monday, November 10th, which I think all of you have received your invitation. So that'll be fun to see that service continue. The airline terminal project, with the shaky economic times that we're in, we're carefully monitoring the kind of global as well as national financial situation, credit markets, and so forth. And the finance director will be making a presentation to the city's finance committee on the financing of the terminal project. And I would like to be able to, whether it is the finance director or airport staff, bring you a presentation in November to kind of bring you up to speed with whatever the latest information is. So right now, we're kind of taking an assessment, see how things shake out in the next few weeks, getting our the main building plans ready to go out to bid so that we can go out to bid quickly if we decide that it's the right moment to be doing that. And we are in close communication with the financial team consultants that have been on board with us since the beginning to monitor the situation. So
The expectation
Stay
is
tuned.
you were going to be issuing a bond.
right,
for
that's
this.
correct. So stay tuned. And that is it for my director's report, unless you have something in the report that I didn't mention.
Any questions, comments?
Good job.
Great.
Oh, I guess the self-serve parking in the long-term lot, is that now in production?
You want to update me?
The equipment is in the overflow lot, and we are waiting on a determination by the city finance department as to who's going to process the credit cards. The city has a processor, AMCO has a processor. That decision's supposed to be made by October 21st, and then we will go live with the operation in the overflow lot in, I think, November 1st. It takes about a week after that decision's made. The long-term lot, we've decided to go ahead out at the terminal and not wait for construction. We're going to install the equipment in the long-term lot. It should be underway. We're going to try and not do it by Thanksgiving or Christmas, but as soon thereafter as we can. And then once the construction does begin and we divide the terminal's long-term lot into short and long-term, the equipment will be there. It would just take a day to switch out an entrance and an exit meter. So we are proceeding. They're anxious to go, we're anxious to go, but we're really working on it. Tracy's working on some new signage to direct folks to the overflow lot, and as soon as it's ready, we'll be using it. Long awaited, yes.
In that same vein, I've been asked how the employee parking will change or be handled if they're in an area with pay.
They will have cards, access cards, or some sort of card that will allow entrance and exits, but it has a closed loop on it, so you can't, like, share the card with somebody behind you, a tagger, sort of. So if you go in, that card won't operate again until you exit, and then it'll be available so you can go in once again. Those cards are going to be issued by AMCO, and they're being ordered. We're working on getting that together as well. The location of employee parking will more than likely shift in the lot further down than where it's currently located.
But it'll probably be the same lot.
Oh, same lot,
Just
yes.
further-
Same location.
Further toward the
Still-
screen.
Still have shuttle service and shuttle pickup right by the employee parking, right.
Okay, good.
I didn't see it.
Any other questions?
I haven't been over to take a look. How is progress on the rental car quick turnaround facility progressing?
It's coming along pretty well, actually. I mean, after discovering a 25,000-gallon World War II fuel storage tank that we missed in the early 90s when we were there, the grading is going on. When I went by today, it looked like they were doing, infrastructure. But they have removed the tank, and we're hauling the debris off. I believe it's to Santa Maria is where it's going. So they're pretty much going to be back on schedule. We might make a comment, too, about the rent-a-car meeting in your presentation with AAAE
Oh, right.
in November.
Right. Go right ahead. You're on a roll here.
It's November 3rd, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it? AAAE, American Association of Airport Executives, will be hosting a rent-a-car and ground transportation workshop in Santa Barbara. And I'm really pleased because it's the first time that they've ever done that. So we're really pleased to have them come. Karen's going to make a presentation at the rent-a-car meeting on the afternoon of the first day. And we would love to have you participate if you're interested. We do have training